start a few minutes early. For some reason, Tim thought people would be late, but apparently not. So good afternoon. I'm Billy Satchel, and welcome to this very important day for my old friend and new boss. This is swearing in for the District Attorney of Sacramento County. So I'd like to take a few moments to recognize the many community leaders that have helped and representatives, both current and retired, who have joined us today and shown their support. Those include police chiefs, sheriffs, mayors, council members, judges, district attorneys, county supervisors, legislators, and other elected public officials, public safety agency representatives and administrators, executive directors, and presidents and CEOs. But most importantly, I would like to acknowledge and recognize Tim's family, his parents, his wife Jenny, his children, who look really nervous right now, and his extended family who are all here and have joined us for a special day. And as we are in the Sakopoulos Library, I'd like to acknowledge and thank George Sakopoulos for hosting and helping with this event. We will start now the posting of the colors by the Mutual Honor Guard, which is comprised of members of local law enforcement and public safety agencies. Please stand for the posting of colors. Now I ask that Anne Fong lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now the national anthem will be performed by Sacramento Sheriff's County Office Honor Guard Sergeant Nguyen.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight boats we watch were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Please be seated. We couldn't agree on whether we were going to do an unplugged version of the national anthem, so we kind of went with both. Thank you, Sergeant Nguyen. So I feel very fortunate and honored to share the stage with my two colleagues and, dare I say, friends. There's a quote that my grandfather read to me when I was a teenager trying to figure out where I was heading in life, and it stuck with me. And through the years, I've heard different variations of it, and it was attributable to lots of different sources. But the one that was read to me was, "Show me a man's friends, and I will tell you who he is." So I try to befriend those who I admire and exemplify the morals and character that I strive to have. Both Tin Ho and Judge Davis are incredible attorneys and people who I watched and admired for lots of years while we were in the DA's office together. And they're incredible in court. I learned a lot watching them. They both were really very persuasive in court. And I noticed that both of them would use analogies and metaphors in making points that was very persuasive. And so I found this quote about close friendships. It says, "I would rather have 4 quarters than 100 pennies." You agree with that, Judge Davis? Yeah. Al Capone said that. I'm not sure if I agree with it or not. In 2006, at the DA's office, there was an attorney who was on the hiring committee, and he came to my office, and he was really excited about this lateral attorney, an attorney who was a DA in another county who was coming to ours from Riverside County. That attorney who was on the hiring committee, his name is Kevin Green. He didn't get excited about much, so he was excited if you knew him. And so he was really excited, and he said, "You know, we've got this guy. I think you're going to like him. He's a local guy. He grew up here. He went to Kennedy High School. He's from Sacramento like you. He was really an outstanding athlete. He got a full ride track scholarship to Tulane University. He then went to USC School of Law, and he's been in Riverside since. And of course, I hear all of these accolades, and I'm like, well, let's see this guy in the courtroom." But that person didn't disappoint. That was, at the time, Deputy District Attorney Carlton Davis. He's now Judge Davis. And for the next decade, Tin and I worked alongside with Judge Davis as he did dozens of complex trials. He marshaled evidence in very persuasive ways, and we watched him prevail in court over and over and over. And I was a little jealous, but I thought maybe I should befriend this guy because he's such a great attorney. So both Tin and Carlton Davis, at the time of the DA's office, we became very close friends. and I really respect them, both Tin Ho and Judge Davis, professionally and personally. I would definitely call both of them quarters and not pennies. These types of friends eventually accomplish things. If you pick these kinds of friends, they pass you up and they become your boss who controls your entire career until you retire. And the other one is granted authority by the governor of the state of California to hold me in contempt if I disobey his order. So I don't know how I got here, but neither of them would ever ask me to do something that wasn't ethical and just. And I find it very appropriate that Judge Davis will be swearing in Tin Ho as the District Attorney of Sacramento County. So please welcome Judge Carlton G. Davis.
Well, good morning, everyone. Thank you for the kind words, William. About 6 years ago, Tin spoke at my swearing in to become a judge. And he told some stories about me that I didn't really like. And I've been patiently waiting for my opportunity to return the favor. But in all seriousness, as William stated, we all work together on the felony teams. And for those of you that may not know, the felony teams at the DA's office is not where you go when you're a brand new attorney, but it's where every single attorney has to go in order to prove themselves and prove their worth. And when we were on the felony teams working 7 days a week, 70 hours a week, doing back-to-back trials, pulling pranks on each other to pass the time, I think that if someone would have came into the DA's office and bet us $1 million that we would have ended up where we currently are in our careers, a judge, a bureau chief, and the future DA of Sacramento County, I think all of us would have bet against ourselves because none of us knew what was just beyond the horizon. And no one exemplifies that more than this man right here. Because when he came to this country, he couldn't even speak the English language. Do you hear me, ladies and gentlemen? He couldn't even speak the language, and now he's an expert at it. You see, when he came to this country, he didn't even have a nickel in his pocket. He didn't grow up with a silver spoon in his mouth. He didn't have a rich uncle that could bankroll him through life. He didn't even have a relative that could describe to him how to fill out a college application. Oh no, you see, when he came to this country, the only people that he knew were his immediate family. And now, look at all the people that are here to support him. Only in America. Because no one would have thought, no one would have imagined that this immigrant from Vietnam would be on the precipice of about to become the first minority DA in Sacramento County history. And if what he has accomplished does not only deserve him a round of applause, but does not cause all of you to get up on your feet right now and show your appreciation for what he has done, I don't know what does. Because he has accomplished something that most people could not accomplish or fathom to accomplish based on where he started from. In the short time that I have with you, I'm not going to go over his origin story. I'm going to talk about his brief time at the DA's office. And like I stated, he and I were on the felony teams together. But for whatever reason, the powers that be had us spend the majority of our time in the same units. We were on the prelim unit together, the felony teams together, the SCR teams together, the soccer unit together, the rape unit together, the gang unit together, and we got our homicides around the exact same time. When you spend that much time with the same person year in and year out, it didn't take long for Tin and I to both realize that both of us are type A personalities and we're pretty competitive people. So we started a friendly competition on who could get the most guilty verdicts in a year. The loser would have to take the winner out to the lunch of the winner's choosing. Sometimes I would win, sometimes he would win. But when we got sent to the SACA unit, he blew that competition that we had out the water. And for those of you that may not know, the SACA unit at the DA's office is the Sexual Abuse Child Abuse Unit. In my humble opinion, it's one of the most difficult units in the office because you're dealing with society's most vulnerable victims, children. And you're dealing with children that have been neglected, that have been abused, that have been molested. You're dealing with families that are going through some of the most traumatic things that a family can go through. And if you would care about your cases like Tin and I cared about our cases, when you're in that unit, you're going to have many sleepless nights, wondering how you're going to do your opening statement, wondering how you're going to present that DNA evidence to the jury without boring them to death. And one year while we were in the middle of this friendly competition, I did 14 trials and got 14 guilty verdicts. And I was feeling pretty good about myself. I thought, there's no way he's gonna catch me this year. And I was thinking, what overpriced steakhouse am I gonna have him take me to? But anyone that knows Tin Ho knows he does not go down without a fight. And that year, he did 19 trials and got 19 guilty verdicts in a row. He did the most trials in SACA unit history that year. And that was the first time I started to look at him a little differently. Because when I was a newer attorney, I would always go watch more senior attorneys in trial. And any of you newer attorneys here, I would advise you to do the same thing. Because any trial attorney will tell you that imitation is the greatest form of flattery. But I never went and saw people that were on my level, that were equal to me. Because I said, what am I going to learn from them? But when he did those 19 trials, I said, let me go check him out. Normally, I would bring a notebook with me to write notes so I can take down everything they were saying. But for this guy, I'm not bringing a notebook. I ain't bringing a notebook for him. But ladies and gentlemen, as soon as I walked into that courtroom, I regretted not bringing my notebook. Because as soon as he got up to do his closing argument, he used words in such a way that I never heard words used before. He told stories in such a way that combined the facts and the elements of the case so that the jury could easily understand what the case was all about. And since I didn't have my notebook with me, I was feverishly writing on my phone, word for word, what he was saying. Because the last thing I was going to do is tell my friendly competitor, hey, how do you do your closing argument? I wasn't going to give him that pleasure. But when I walked out the courtroom that day, I knew that I had just saw one of the best trial attorneys that Sacramento County had to offer. I soon left to try to become a judge, but I was not alone in my sentiments because he won every award in the office that a person could win. He became a supervisor, he became a bureau chief, and then he got the Golden State Killer case. But what some of you may not know is that they didn't just give him that case. He went to Anne Marie and her lieutenants and advocated for that case. He told them that he can deal with the stress and anxiety that comes along with having not only the biggest case in Sacramento County history, but California history. He told them that he can deal with the fact that the evidence had been sitting in a warehouse for at least 30 years and the victims had been waiting even longer. You see, when it came to that Golden State Killer case, ladies and gentlemen, he didn't run from it, he ran towards it. And when he becomes DA of Sacramento County, he's gonna do the exact same thing. As you know, I'm from Sacramento like Billy's from Sacramento. And if you know Sacramento like I know Sacramento, then you know it's a melting pot of different cultures, of different beliefs, of different political affiliations, of different races. Anyone from Sacramento County knows that. And if you're DA of this beautiful, diverse county, then you know that everybody has to have a seat at the table. You have to be transparent. But most importantly, you have to be willing to adapt. Because while you should take great pride in receiving guilty verdicts, you should take just as much pride in dismissing a case if the evidence does not support a conviction. In our new roles that we have now, Tin and I probably will frequently disagree, and that's how it should be. But I fully expect that when he's making filing decisions, he won't make filing decisions based on the zip code someone lives in, or the color of their skin, or their last name. But he'll make filing decisions based on that common thread that we all share in this room today, and that is that we're human beings. And that is why I am proud to be the judge that is swearing in my former colleague, my friendly competitor, and my friend, Tin Vu Ho. All right, right hand up here. I, Tin Ho,
I, Tin Ho,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
that I will well
that I will well
and faithfully discharge the duties
and faithfully discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I am about to enter.
Congratulations, sir. DA Tin Vu Ho.
There is an old African proverb. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, then go together. As I look at my parents, I think, how far have we come? My father was born into a small village in Vietnam, and my mom was raised on a farm in the countryside. When the communists took over, my parents, my little brother, and I escaped on a fishing boat across the South China Sea. After being rescued, we spent months in a refugee camp in Malaysia. As we walked off that plane in San Francisco and I stepped foot onto this beautiful land, I didn't understand a single word of English. I learned how to speak English from watching Bugs Bunny cartoons. 22 years later, I graduated from McGeorge School of Law. How far have we come? As I look at my wife, I think, how far have we come? First time I ever saw her, I literally stopped in my tracks. My kids are saying ick right now. But I remember the first time I saw her, I stopped in my tracks. And the most important decision that you'll ever make in life is who you marry. And I made the best decision of my life that day. And now we have 3 beautiful children sitting here. How far have we come? In 2004, I started as a prosecutor here in Sacramento County, and eventually I was put on the preliminary hearing team where I first met William, or Billy Satchel as I know him. Now, Billy and I are 2 very different people. In high school, he played football, and I played tennis. He lifted weights, and I didn't lift any. He liked to drink beer, and I liked to drink wine. But we instantly became friends. It was because we had a shared work commitment and work ethic. And at times we felt like outsiders because we knew what having nothing felt like. Billy grew up in Rancho Cordova in a small apartment, and he worked at a grocery store to pay his way through community college, and then Sac State, and then law school, and now he's an assistant chief at the DA's office. How far have we come? Now, I want to take a moment right now to talk about the profession of prosecution and how far we have come and how far we have yet to go. It is a noble profession, one imbued with the solemn responsibility as the gatekeeper to our system of justice, a voice for the voiceless, the protector of the public, and the conscience of a community charged with the calling of justice. Who stands up for the child who was molested? A prosecutor. Who speaks on behalf of the undocumented mother who was beaten by a boyfriend? A prosecutor. Who will defend an elderly Asian man who was shoved down and beaten down? A prosecutor. And who will hold the hand of a grieving mother when her son was killed in a drive-by shooting and shepherd her through the valley of the shadow of death? A prosecutor. I remember the first time I met my good friend Nicole Clavel. Her eyes still welled up with tears and her hand trembling with heartache because her son JJ was killed in a drive-by shooting on his way to play football at Grand High School. I was assigned to prosecute a 15-year-old defendant who was responsible for murdering JJ. In the years since then, Nicole has turned tragedy into triumph, pain into power in her role at the city of Sacramento to prevent youth violence. She's one of the strongest people I know. And I also remember the day I met Chris and Phyllis, two victims and survivors of the East Area rapist and Golden State Killer. When I was assigned that case and I came to court, I remember each and every time Chris and Phyllis would be right there in the front row staring down the monster who raped upwards of 50 women, committed over 120 burglaries and 13 known murders up and down the state of California in 11 different jurisdictions. The road to justice was long, and the distance traveled was far. After 40 years, we were able to do the improbable and the impossible by obtaining a measure of justice and closure for those victims and many others. We've come a long way, but we have further to go. For many years, as Judge Davis or my good friend Carlton said, I was focused on doing trial after trial after trial after trial. It was a singular, obsessive focus that required the acquisition of a certain skill set that served me well in the courtroom. And during that time period, I met a young prosecutor by the name of Carlton Davis. His office was just a few doors from mine, and on many of the late afternoons, he would saunter into my office, plop down on the chair across from me. And if you know anything about Carlton, before he became a judge, his tie would be loosened to the right, his dress shirt would be half untucked. And we would sit there, and we'd talk about politics, and we'd talk about life, and we'd talk about sports and trial strategy. Carlton grew up in Sacramento. This is his community. And he would often remind me that there's more to being a prosecutor than just being in the courtroom. Don't forget the community, he would tell me. You need to be out there too, he would remind me. And he planted that seed in my mind and set an example for me to follow. We've come a long way, but we have further to go. I know that there are some communities that view the district attorney's office and law enforcement with distrust and distaste. And it is incumbent upon us to build that bridge and reach out to them. And not only build that bridge, but be that bridge. I will establish an advisory council made up of people from diverse communities with diverse viewpoints so that they can have direct access and communication so that we can build that relationship of trust with the community. And additionally, in the coming months, I will be an honorary co-chair of a new nonprofit called Justice Beyond the Courtroom. And in the coming months, I'll share with you more about what Justice Beyond the Courtroom will be doing in the community, for the community, with the community. We've come a long way, but there is further distance for us to travel. I will make sure that in working with our criminal justice partners in law enforcement, establish a gun violence prevention unit to work with our juveniles, and a neighborhood court diversion program for our juveniles. But make no mistake about this, we will tackle gun violence, domestic violence, and sexual violence, and hold those who commit those crimes accountable, and make sure that the voices of victims are always heard and never silenced. I will also make sure, and I've already reached out to some of our other elected officials, from our new Sheriff Jim Cooper to Chief Lester from the city of Sacramento, our other regional chiefs and our local law enforcement, so that we can gather together and find a new path forward to tackle the homeless crisis, and tackle it in a way that is both compassionate but accountable when it comes to mental health and drug addiction. And I know that our county exec, Ann Edwards, and our city manager, Howard Chan, have set the example for us to move forward in that new path. And as we move forward in this new path, and in the spirit of doing so, today I want to share with you something that has not been made public previously. I want to share with you the new symbol of the DA's office, our new logo. And here we have it. We have Lady Justice. And in one hand, she has the sword, which represents and symbolizes accountability. But in the other hand, she has the scales of justice, the scales representing essentially fairness, equality, and balance. And next to her is the dome of our state capitol, because we are the state capitol, and we should be leading the state of California in justice. And underneath that in Latin, we have the words semper justia, which means always just, because as prosecutors, we should always strive to be just and to obtain justice. And behind that, we have the rising sun. A rising sun for a new day. This day that would not have happened without you, without each and every one of you. And I cannot thank each and every one of you enough. From the elected leaders that are in this office that help me, from my colleagues in the office, from law enforcement, from my friends in the trades, the building trades, to those in the business community, but I also want to recognize the API community, the Asian community that is here today, because I am cognizant of how far we have come today. You see, there used to be a wall at the DA's office that had all the photographs of every single elected DA in Sacramento County's history. And I would stand there and I would look at every single one of those photographs, 35 of them to be exact. These were great lawyers, great prosecutors, and some who became great judges. But 35 photographs, and as I looked at those photographs, none of them looked like me. And none of them looked like Judge Davis or Assistant Chief Satchel or Sonia Martinez or Chuck Gonzalez or Rochelle Howe or Judge Satnam Ratu. Out of 2,400 elected DAs in the country, I will be the 5th currently that is of API descent. So I am cognizant of the history that we are making today. But when I look out into this audience and into this room, you know what I see? I see an audience filled with people who are immigrants and refugees, who are farmers and laborers, who are business owners and union leaders, who are police officers and activists, who are Republicans and Democrats, who are conservatives and progressives. I see people who have committed crimes and people who have been victims of crimes. But you know what I see most of all in this room? I see a community coming together so that we can go further. Thank you so much.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. That concludes the ceremony. Thank you.